All right, welcome back to the Just Some BS podcast. Today we have Bernice Quesenberry. So thank you for coming on.
Yes, thanks for having me, Brandon.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm going to run down through your CV real quick. This is directly from your LinkedIn. So Chief Executive Officer, founder of Chasing Rainbows, Crying Out Loud podcast host, philanthropist, maternal, fetal, and mental health advocate, free support groups, mentors, therapy, care packages, and more.
Wow, thanks, Brandon. Yes, that is me.
It's amazing. Yeah, so I want to deep dive into some of the, we'll probably cover a lot of this, but
Yeah.
out of the gate, we were talking a little bit about it. What is the most surprising thing about podcasting for you?
It is being the host and really sometimes really pulling those stories out of people and really learning how to pivot on the spot while you're being video recorded. So it's always a fun time, you know it.
Yeah, totally agree. I found early on that I followed script too much. I wouldn't pull on the threads that were like right in front of my face and juicy because I was so worried about like hitting all my questions. And then I really started relaxing with that. But finding that balance, I think, is probably the hardest thing for me.
It really is, just to make sure, we're giving our listeners something and really, leaving them with something great.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, let's go. Question number 1. From personal grief to national support, the genesis of Chasing the Rainbows. After the tragic loss of your daughter, Brooke, you transformed your personal grief into a mission that now supports individuals nationwide. The really pivotal moment, inspiring, obviously part of that being with your daughter, but Chasing Rainbows. And how did you envision the impact for when you started this venture?
Right. Yeah, it really was out of, a mom's, deepest grief of losing a child. And honestly, it was returning to the workforce. I was a national commercial insurance broker. And really, once returning, realizing like I needed to do something more with my pain. I've had, 20 years of business experience in all different sectors, with sales and marketing, insurance. And how can I use this then for the better good and bridge that gap between someone leaving the hospital with empty arms, a parent's worst nightmare, to having the support that they need? Because, grief looks differently for everyone. It bursts differently for everyone, and just making sure that they have those connections. So really, we started out doing daily support groups and mentorship, and then expanded upon that based on, our survivors' needs, needing therapy, different kinds of self-care package items, mindful movement, yoga, breathwork, meditation. And it's really all around what each individual person needs, not about what I may need or seek. And, with this type of loss, unless someone's going through it, it's really complex. There's a lot of, trauma behind it. It's a whirlwind of events. And it really does, need a community or, people around you that understand what you're going through. I think that's in any difficult part in life.
So I may ask some ignorant questions here, obviously, because I've never been through it, but I can't imagine the whirlwind of emotions, which you just talked about.
Yeah.
So in that moment, to have a North Star moment, to think about, this is something I have to do that's bigger than the right now. And I need to, like you said, I'm back in work. I'm trying to get back to normal. This just still doesn't feel right. Like all these emotions. And then it's hard enough making that kind of decision under the best circumstances.
Exactly.
That amazes me. So like, can you walk me through, like, was there, oh my gosh, all this stuff's going on, I still don't feel right, and I can feel this thing pulling me in that direction? Or what did that look like?
Yes, absolutely. So the day that we walked out of the hospital, they gave us a list of resources. I called every single one of them because I knew like my leave was cut once, a child unfortunately passes, your FMLA is done and you need to return to work with 3 days after grieving. So, returning, I called all of them to try to get into a support group. Either, they weren't happening, or unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of nonprofits shut down. I also called a lot of private therapists, about 14 of them to be exact, and saying that, I have private insurance, we can pay out of pocket, and still couldn't get a call back. And then, finally was able to find a trauma therapist to be able to get in with and do weekly sessions and things like that. But that was the only thing we had available. So then I started to seek out, and people started to reach out to me on social media because I felt the need to finally say, we did have our daughter, and she ended up passing away, 5.5 weeks later. And it was so hard because, like, all the guilt, shame, and blame that comes with trauma and things like that, almost like wants to keep you isolated and lonely. So putting it out there was like my way of like, okay, she did exist. Here she is. And then
Wow.
I started to have a community of people say, me too, me too, me too. And
Wow.
I was like, oh my goodness, where's a place that we can all go to unite and really, start to focus on our mental health? Because, something that I tell people who may not understand this type of grief is when you lose a parent, you lose your past. And when you lose a baby, you lose your future.
Oh.
So it's all learning how to relive without one of your children in your arms. So having this community, and then really expanding it from that. So from word of mouth, we've been able to take it from starting it here, where we launched it in September of 2022, and really started out, like I said, with the daily support groups and mentorship. And then from there, building upon relationships with different medical professionals, different funeral homes, anyone in this space really. And from there, we really have expanded to all 50 states and then
Wow.
getting ready to open, different virtual state offices here in the summer.
That's incredible.
Oh, thanks, Brandon. Thanks.
No, like to well, one, put it out there. I'm with you. I think that is, you're terrified. I can imagine,
Yeah.
like you said, you want to do this in those situations and just hermit in, because I did something wrong. All of the feelings I'm sure that come with that.
Yes.
And to put it out there, to be like, okay, this is what I'm going through. And then just, you're right. I can imagine the support of people going, holy crap, I'm not alone. That had
Yeah.
to be powerful just from that launch.
It really was. And, come to find out now that we're part of the statistic, 1 in 4 and 1 in 3 with birth trauma, but 1 in 4, couples go through a loss. And
Mm.
that's anywhere, any type of baby loss. So that includes like miscarriage, stillbirth,
Yep.
infant loss, but then that also like infertility. That's a whole other animal that we also, service as well. And that's 1 in 6 globally going through infertility.
Wow.
So if you lump all of it together, it's really 1 in 3 going through these types of losses that we are servicing.
That there was no outlet to call that called you back that was
Yeah.
available at the moment.
Yeah. Nothing. I mean, yeah, it was shocking, in the world that we live in, and especially how, like, mental health is really starting to, like, people are recognizing it now, understanding that it's just as important to take care of your mental as it is your physical, and all of those things, that it's starting to finally it got the recognition, and it really just took off, based on that. And, our support groups run a couple times a day, up to 4 a day.
Wow.
So if you can't jump in the morning, or you're, PST on the West Coast or whatever, you can jump on the 3 o'clock group, which will be 12 o'clock noon your time. And then, we have 6, 7, and then weekend groups. So it's really trying to make sure that somebody has the support that they need when they need and seek it.
Mm.
So, yeah.
So if I'm coming in to that, and I reach out to this kind of organization, I'm saying, okay, I know I need something. I'm
Yes.
nervous going into this. So what does that support group look like?
Absolutely. So it is a very warm and welcoming environment. We keep it that way. It is a safe space. All of our volunteers, because we're peer led, we're trauma informed trained, because one, we want to make sure that our survivors aren't getting re traumatized, by servicing, all of our survivors and things. Also, that we're recognizing trauma, crisis, all of those important things. So if somebody does need the additional help, we have that. But when they come in, it's a room full of grieving people, and we're not just sitting there crying. People,
Yeah.
it's not about that. It's about living after these losses. And yeah, we
Mm.
do cry, but we also laugh. And really, it's a place just to dump everything. For example, the insensitivities that people say throughout the day, like, you're trying not to alienate yourself even more from the world, but your world just came crashing down. So when you're
Yeah.
returning to work and someone says to you, God has a plan, or everything happens for a reason, it's like, okay, one survivor may believe that, but I don't personally believe that. Or like,
Mm.
it's really hard to hear when you're still fresh in your grief. Or someone says, oh, well, you'll have another baby. And it's like, babies don't replace babies. They're an addition to, those kind
Wow.
of things. But you don't want to say those things in your deepest grief. You're like, okay, you just kind of say thank you and walk away. But then you need a place when you're like, no one's understanding what I'm going through. And then, yeah, so coming into group, we really just pour our hearts out, and it is that safe space. And that's me too.
Mm.
I'm in there as well sharing.
Yeah, that's really, I didn't, you don't think about those things. So let me ask you this, as a person that wouldn't or is socially awkward in a lot of moments, and including would be one of these moments, what, as sitting on that side, what is our best approach to a situation like that for someone where you want them to know if they need anything, you're here, but you don't even know the right sentences or words to use to help in the situation?
Brandon, actually exactly what you just did. Like, I mean, someone coming to me and saying, listen, I care so deeply for you. I know what you went through was extremely, the worst, nightmare of a parent. I just want you to know I'm here to listen. And even if I don't know what you're going through, I just want to be a sounding board for you and be there. And
Okay.
honestly, that's the biggest things. Taking 8 minutes with someone, it's documented. That 8 minutes really gets someone to
Mm,
feel validated with their feelings if you just take that time with them. And, I think one of the hardest things is too, after these losses, when someone asks, how are you? And when you go to say, like, you're not really doing okay, but you'll say that just to stop because you don't want to trauma dump on somebody like, hey, I'm actually doing really crappy, like thinking
Sure.
about this and that, and so just really having that person. But
okay.
also, if somebody doesn't feel comfortable doing that either and being that sounding board, even sending a text message or something just to say, if they are a close friend, may I please hire a cleaning person for you? May I please come over and do yard
Mm,
work? I have an hour or like 5 hours available this day. I can either come over and sit with you and we can watch movies. I can either just come sit with you and you can talk and I'll listen. I can come over and clean your house while you take a nap and shower and bathe. Like I can, just suggesting different things because sometimes survivors don't know what to ask for and they don't want you to see that the world is completely a disaster and a mess right now grieving either. And I think that's, with a lot of types of grief. So
mm,
sending those kind of messages, and just letting them know I am here a call away too is just really important.
Yeah, that's really good. I think I heard it's interesting because when we talk about, just showing up for other employees at work, I think one of the scariest things is we show up and think we have to have a solution. And like you're
Yes.
saying, you don't. You just sometimes say, I'm here,
I know.
whatever you need, or just I will donate my time to stuff that you don't want to get to right now. That's really
That's
good.
exactly right, and it really is almost being uncomfortable, that person, right? And sitting with the person in their grief and realistically and like you said, when people are saying those things, they're trying to take the pain away from you because 'cause they're seeing that you're ready to break down when I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I'm missing my daughter, like, I can't,
mm,
like, I'm trying to figure out life, like, I don't know what our future looks like." And I'm, like, crying, and that's when those statements get said, and I get it. Before we went through our secondary infertility journey and Brooke and losing our daughter, I didn't know how to handle these situations. And I
yeah.
probably was one of those that said everything happened for a reason or something else, unfortunately. And like I now, through this work have definitely, it's an eye opener too. Yeah, Brandon.
Mm,
So I think we all try to do our best. But yeah, if we can do any kind of education just to help people with that part. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And it's not, I'm with you. It's not out of, I don't think anybody's trying to be
Yes.
not helpful, right? We're just ignorant to how we're supposed to process because you have to have the skills to do it.
Yes, and
Yeah.
honestly, our country does a really bad job with grief, if you think about it. Like 3 days to grieve and
100%.
return to work. Like other societies hold like seances and ceremonies for
mm,
months on end. They're like beating the grounds with sticks, because you're angry, like all the different
yes.
feelings that come with grief, mourning. And like they shave their heads, they scream at the top of their lungs, they're dancing around fire, like they're doing all of these things. And it's true. Like I feel like sometimes we're supposed to be these robots
Mm,
and it's not that. It takes out the human aspect of, the emotions that we're feeling when there's, deep types of grief and things like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
Sorry, not to get too heavy, but yeah.
no, it's really, really good. And I think one, and I saw a bit of this even in from our aspect was like after COVID, there was so many issues that we didn't have enough support to go around. So not even just taking like grief aspect, people being angry and not being able to put their finger on why. And we had nowhere to go.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
scary.
It is. It really is scary. And, we're addressing grief and trauma in this sector right now, right?
yeah.
But our model really could be used in different sectors because we're trying to have a proactive approach. We're here, like we are giving our resources to the hospital. So as soon as someone is, or OBGYN office or maternal fetal medicine or any of those types, and like as soon as someone's going through a loss, they get our information, which is great because then they don't have to leave feeling alone, right? But it's like trying to get it out in the community so people know about us, for unfortunately when these losses do occur. But yeah, that proactiveness though, instead of being reactive, is so important with trauma.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, quick pause here. If this is hitting the notes with anyone, we can do this 100 times. But where can they go? Where can they find? Where can they say, "Hey, this is something I need"? Where are we going?
Yes, absolutely. Please visit us at chasingtherainbows.org. Reach out to us on the contact form and we will be in touch with you. That's the fastest and easiest way for us to get you connected to services or anything that you may need.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, so, unspoken realities of loss. You emphasize the importance of breaking the silence surrounding infertility, pregnancy, and infant loss. What societal or cultural factors do you believe contribute to this silence, and how does Chasing the Rainbows work to dismantle these barriers?
Yeah, so what's really interesting is like the younger generations coming up through the workforce now, they actually really want, like they care about culture. They care about
Mm,
like people's emotions and feelings. They care about mental health and those kind of things. So it's really interesting. We really are though trying to break the silence and barriers with mental health by offering free trauma therapy. And we're not working, or we're not charging people for, the sessions or anything like that. And it's a whole different approach, to doing those kind of things because, you know, if somebody has insurance and let's say they're in a job that, they can't seek mental health support or something like that, like, those kind of things, we want to make sure that those barriers are broken down for them. And also, when we look at fathers, right? The lost
mm,
dads, them getting a voice and around mental health, and it's their loss too. And so, making sure that our society understands why this is so important. I think it's more for us explaining to, different foundations that we're working with and things like that, that have a grasp on mental health, but in this sector particularly too.
mm.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't think about the dads either, but it didn't even come into context for me until you said that, which also is very sad for me, right? Because it's like, like they're just supposed to deal when
Yes.
that it's a huge problem in itself, right? Because there's grief that goes along with both sides.
It is. It's so interesting because when the woman, of course, she went through like the physical aspect of
Yes.
things too, but the man, he was right there, beside, or your partner's right there beside you, the lost father and or dad, and it's really a two people, but they look at them as the support person for the mom, but really they also need the support.
Mm,
And they feel lost because they feel guilty and all these things because they're seeing their wife recovering with no baby. They're seeing like all the emotions. They can't take that pain away from her. And then also this was their child too, and they feel like they have to keep things moving in the house. They have to keep things moving, going to work, like providing all of those things. And we really are, by having a huge Father's Day event in New York City this
mm,
year, to really break that silence, because in bringing together nonprofits that service fathers and those kind of things. And we're doing a bursting bubble for the moms, on bereaved Mother's Day, because
mm,
Mother's Day and Father's Day isn't easy for everyone. And so,
Good point.
just having that space. Yeah.
mm.
Mhm. Yeah, Brandon.
Yeah, immediately when you started talking about that, I was trying to put myself in that situation and I immediately went into fixer mode, right? But
Yes.
there's nothing to fix and that's got to be part of the torment. Like that would be a torment for me, is like there's nothing
Yes.
to take this problem away, or there's nothing I can do to make it better.
Absolutely. And something that's hard is too, I'm crying sometimes, like I don't want to peel myself off the floor. Like, you got to feel your grief sometimes. And if you need to stay in bed with the covers over your head, do it,
Right.
if that's what you need. But it's so true, and naturally when you see someone crying, you're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And there's so many things, if your husband's asking you that constantly, it's like, what do you think? But you
Yeah.
also feel like this is the person that's only in this with you because it was you two that knew your baby, and
Mm,
those kind of things. So it makes it very like personal too. But couples, unfortunately, based on these losses, without support and things like that, like 90% of them, end up, um, unfortunately, splitting after these types of losses, and that's That's really hard to hear. So that's what we're trying to prevent too, right?
Mm,
Like, is having that safe space for the women, having a safe space for the lost dads, all those things to be able to then come together, right?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's such a traumatic experience, and it's
Mhm.
not something we're ever trained on. So
Right.
you have to seek outside help to process through that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
It's a lot. It's a lot to because it is both your losses. You're both handling it very differently, and grieving is so different. And I know for at least my husband and I, this was the first significant, right, a child loss. So
Yeah.
we both didn't know how each other would handle this type of loss, and I like and each other, like it changed us completely.
Sure.
I almost look at my life like before Brooke and after Brooke now, which is
mm.
because like that's how I like my timeline and my memory is in my head too.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, because you evolved as a person as well as he did, I'm sure. And it
Yes,
was like a completely
absolutely.
different, yeah. Wow.
Absolutely,
I don't
Brandon.
think I
Yeah,
ever even
she's
thought
forever
about.
changed us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Whew. Man.
Oh, I know, but repurposing my pain has given me purpose. And of course, I would do anything to always get my daughter back. I say that
Sure.
every day. However, we're not there. And, someday I'll, see her again. But here we are today. And I am so, I just am so astounded by all of our survivors who show up
Mm,
every day, in different areas, getting the mental health support that they need or asking for the help that they need. And that's the huge thing, right? Like when someone is asking for help, they're desperate and like they're at that point and we just, take that with such care and, making sure that they are getting whatever they need and getting connected to things and we're making that as easy and seamless as possible for them because they're in the thick of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Daily support. So offering daily support groups is a cornerstone of your organization. How does this consistent day-to-day engagement influence the healing process for survivors compared to more traditional, less frequent support models?
Oh, I love it. So yes. What's interesting is when we were starting out with support groups and things like that and doing surveys with our survivors, we were finding that they love options. If they have to be forced into this once a month support group, more times than not, they won't go to it. And it's because it's only one time offered, and if they're not feeling griefy that day, let's say, they're not going to go. But then having this and also a virtual model, right? So anybody, if they're registered, they can jump into the support group and things, but you don't know the people there. Like you're starting to build a relationship with them, but you don't really mind what you share in there because it's not like you're just going to pass them on the street and things like that. So it's not like a local in-person support group, which makes it a lot easier and almost from like a mental standpoint to break down those barriers to want to join group and things like that too. But having it more frequently, we're seeing the attendance like we service thousands of survivors across the US with all of our different services. But also that piece and then the mentorship. So having a peer mentor who does daily check-ins with you to see how you're doing, if you need anything, you want to talk through anything, that too, that one-on-one, if somebody wants that is nice to have that accountability buddy for when you go back into the real world too.
Those volunteers are like superheroes. Like that's crazy.
They are. They are. And I look at them every day. I'm just like astounded by them. I can't say that enough because they really put their hurt, their pain, themselves, their heartbreak. And I mean, we're talking about two different medical diagnoses that these women have gotten. I'll speak for myself, having endometriosis, PCOS, and things. I openly talk about that because why not? And if I can help somebody else who has the same, things going on and if they're trying to get those kind of things, like why not share everything that we've learned along the way? So then we can also be the best advocates for ourselves with our health care too, especially when we're trying to conceive. So all of those
mm,
things are super important as well.
Well, and it's almost exponential because it's that like you're sharing and then you realize that sharing is so helpful and then other people start sharing. It's like almost throwing the stone in the pond is what you're doing.
Yes. It's that
Yeah.
ripple effect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's
amazing.
exactly it. And because you
mm,
do, like you're never had to navigate this before, you don't know how to navigate it. So, and it's not like they're coming in there and getting guidance and advice and we're telling them this is how you do things. It's more like, hey, this is how I did it. And then this is how I did it. And then they can form their own way. And it's really just hearing how other survivors, like, how many kids do you have? That's a common question that gets asked at networking functions. And that's hard for someone who just lost a baby. Do I include them in my number or don't I? And those kind of things. So before you go into that situation, let's prep you. Like, let's talk through however you feel like answering that or something, those kind of things. And it's, you don't think about it. Yeah.
No, you don't. And when you just said that, I
Yeah.
like that's probably an anxiety driven going to social because that's one of the first questions people
Yes.
ask, right?
And even
Everybody wants to know about family.
yes. And if people knew in that room that you were pregnant and now they lost your baby, like, almost they treat you like the elephant in the room too. So you're going in there already like, and it's probably just your own stuff, right? And it's from
Yeah,
grief and trauma. But when
for
you're
sure.
walking in, you're already amped up. So when someone says that, but then for like infertility survivors too, like a big thing for them, like, why don't you have children yet? Or are you guys going to have children? Oh, good for you. You guys can travel and have fun. And it's like, you don't know the years that somebody may be struggling to get pregnant or wanting to have kids. And then someone says, or you can have one of my kids, joking. And it's like, oh, I would do anything to have a kid. But I mean, in the midst of it, you don't. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. But that's
Man.
why it is like having a
Yeah.
support group, you can dump it, leave it, and then you're
Yeah.
not isolating yourself or, yeah, just still being the elephant in the room. You get to then go out and be able to hopefully, heal a little bit and, and then have a community to turn to when you need them.
One of my favorite phrases around culture, at least at SWF, is like, you never
Yeah.
know the baggage someone's carrying. Right? I call it baggage just because I feel like it's this thing we're dragging around and it changes from day to day, or it could be
Yes.
something, that you're carrying for years because of an incident. But like
Yes.
that constant change of what that looks like from day to day is what makes all of this so difficult. Like
Yes.
where you got to give people space to have kind of a crappy day. And then it's probably not about you, so don't take it
Yes.
so
Yes.
personally. But
Yes.
we get emotional because everybody else is emotional and then it just kicks off, right?
It does, it does, but you're so right. You don't know, like we say, everybody's walking the same staircase, they're just different colors. And,
Mm,
you don't know, like, what's in everybody's bag and what they've had gone through and things like that, and, I think that's why it is important, Brandon, like what you do, podcasting and
mm.
putting things out there for people to hear, and same with, us, it's just really then people know where to turn, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I mean, this is an exact example. I would never know how to navigate some of these conversations, but it's so enlightening to be like, just do these minor things because it
Yeah.
means so much in that moment to be
Yes.
like, don't have solutions, just hear whatever you need. Right.
Yes.
And then it's like, instead of being like, okay, I gotta come in with something and like, and then it's really awkward and you say things you shouldn't say and it's a mess. So
It really is. And more times than not, they'll really just tell you and how they're feeling and things. And it might change day to day too. One day they may believe and they might go to you and say, just like any type of grief, right? And like,
yeah.
oh yeah, this okay, like I understand why and this. And then the next day might be in a spin out again, about what they just have been through.
Yeah.
And it does. So yeah, always taking that safe approach is the best way.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about this, but that's the 3 days. So returning to work after such a profound loss can be incredibly challenging. What advice do you offer to both survivors and employers to create a more compassionate, understanding work environment during this transition?
Yeah, so we have been collecting a lot of survivor feedback for, HR directors, for hospitals, and hoping to use that in training someday. Because, yeah, it is. It's a really difficult thing to navigate when people are returning to work. But what we say is this, right? Is having their supports in line or whatever you have for EAP, any kind of support that can be there for them. But I think, sitting down and talking with them and seeing what they need, even if it's just for that first like 30 days of crucial time. What if they need to work remotely, right? Or what if they need to, just have some things tailored to them just a little bit or something like that. But asking them really what they need, um, just to see, is there anything that we can do to support you during this, just to get you back into transition into here. But then also allowing someone to, if they need a therapy session once a week, to be able to take that hour if it is during the workday, as long as they communicated, of course, with
Sure.
their workplace. But, just allowing them to have that mental health support in the facility that they need it.
Yeah, that's really good. So a lot of flexibility in that arena, and
Yes.
then kind of given bandwidth to do
Yes.
whatever needs to be done. Okay,
Yes.
that's good.
Yep.
Um, Building a community of understanding, so peer support is integral to your approach. Can you share a story that illustrates the transformative power of connecting individuals who have faced similar losses?
Yeah. So now that we're in our third year, some of the volunteers that started with us the first year, or sorry, some of the survivors who started with us the first year now are volunteers of ours.
Mm.
And it's because of the passion that they have behind our mission and things like that. But yeah, so we have those raving fans. And I'm trying to think of one particular um, story. And honestly,
It's probably all of
really,
them.
they're all so unique. I know. I'm so sorry. I'm like coming up
No,
blank
you're
here with,
good. I
yeah.
mean, just saying that the survivors turned into volunteers is a story in itself, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it worked so well for them. It's like I want to compound this to other people who were in where I was before. It's pretty amazing.
It is so amazing to see them like get trained and then run support groups now, mentoring other, people who went through the similar types of losses that they did, and how they really are converting their pain into somebody else's survival guide,
Mm.
and really showing up and being there for them, and realizing this wasn't something. And the volunteers, of course, they had, our services, but the ones before them, even we have some volunteers that are 20, 30 years out from their loss, and back in the day they didn't talk about these types of losses. It was kind of just brushed under the rug. You return to work, move on. So now they have finally a place to dump it too, which is huge.
Wow.
And they see the impact of this because, and back in the day too, when a baby unfortunately was born, passed away, they would just scoop them away, and the mom and dad didn't get time with them, and so they never got to like have that closure and things like that. So this gives them almost that way of, yeah, of giving back for the pain that they've had all these years.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Brandon. Thanks.
Just the, yeah, I mean, even the transition of realizing how helpful it is. That, I mean, yeah, like you said, you literally have crazed fans who are realizing how impactful this is for everyone involved. So it's really awesome.
Yeah. Thanks,
Um,
Brandon. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
communicating with compassion so language matters. You've highlighted the importance of knowing what to say and what not to say to those grieving. What are some, well, you talked about some of the common phrases, while well intentioned, can be hurtful. And can you give me alternative expressions for us ignorant people that we can use very specifically in those moments, instead of saying everything happens for a reason? Man, when you said that, that went right through me.
Oh, me too, Brandon, because that's my go-to phrase. Like, I think I use that for everything. I mean, like I
Yeah,
stub
it's
my toe, I'm like, oh, everything happens for a reason, whatever, kind of thing.
good old
But
karma.
realistically, yeah. Right. I know it's hard not to go to those generic, easy phrases, but just saying, I am sending a simple text, because especially after like the month or two that things start to get quiet again. So
Mm.
everybody kind of like forgot about the loss, almost has moved on now. Doing those daily check-ins, just saying, "Hi, thinking of you. How are
Oh,
you?"
that's good.
Yeah, and if you don't even wanna say, "How are you?" because you're not able to, respond, or you don't know what to say, if they do say something, then just saying the thinking of you, sending a heart, I'm always a call and text away, and then also, you know, just saying, "I don't know what you're going through, but I am here to listen because I care about you. I care about your family," and even mentioning their baby by name if, they were able to name their baby,
Mm.
um, and all of those things. But recognizing that they went through this loss too is huge, and that they lost a baby. And that's even bigger, because if they went through what is coined as an early term loss, which is a baby, and, you know, unfortunately, it is really silent. People don't understand. They don't really have a lot of things that they get. They might have one ultrasound picture if they're lucky, but
Mm,
they almost, I know in myself when I went through an early term, that it almost feels like, did my baby even exist? Because I have
Sure.
nothing to show for it. And, so it's difficult. But having, like I said, those, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. I can come over and help around the house, but then actually making suggestions and saying I'm available this time, those kind of things, and
Yeah. So
going off
doing
of,
a little bit of legwork for them.
yes, and with
Okay.
their support system too. So
Sure.
their spouse, or yeah. Um, but it really just does come down to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I would have thought about like, hey, this spot's available. I can make time for whatever you need for that. Cause then it takes all of the back and forth out of it. Cause that's
It
got to be
does.
the annoying part, right? Like it's just
Yes.
dealing with anything in the moment is not, and it's like this spot to this spot, open block. Do you need anything done? I can do whatever. Yeah, that's really
Yes.
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it
That
helps, like, yeah. Yep.
can help with really almost anything, I'm sure, in that space. Yeah.
I know. Laundry, I mean, every little thing is so helpful in that time.
Yeah, that's good. Um, Scaling support without losing personal touch. So, Chasing the Rainbows has grown from serving York, PA, to reaching all 50 states. How have you managed to maintain the personal, compassionate touch of your services while scaling to a national level?
So it really has been our volunteers who have really stepped up and in. And we have different types of volunteers. So our support services side is one thing. And then we also have what we call as state ambassadors who do our outreach in the states is another thing. And so getting them connected, and that's what we're trying to do now geographically, is break it down per state. So then if we ever do want to do in-person support groups or anything like that, then it's a lot easier model to go off of. Um, but yes, so having the right volunteers, having the right amount of volunteers who are
mm,
actually active is extremely important. And that was a barrier that, I didn't necessarily see. I volunteered a lot in other organizations and still serve on some boards outside of Chasing the Rainbows and things like that. And I'm the type of person that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And, everybody does come into an organization so well intentioned, to volunteer and things like that. But then life shows up and things
yeah.
happen. And so, I think it's a numbers game, of course, like making sure you have the right amount of volunteers and everything. But also keeping true to our mission and making sure that we are responding to people within 24 hours, that we are getting
Wow.
them connected to the services and into therapy within a week and not having a wait time. All of those things, and really keeping true to connecting people to whatever they need and seek at the time of when they are, is extremely important, and taking it off their plate instead of having to call 14 trauma therapists. Here is one, and here they'll be calling you to schedule an appointment. You need a coping care package. It's going to be arriving at your house in 3 weeks. You need, let's say, mindful movement videos. Here's the password to our videos, and you can go in and look at them at your leisure. And then you can join any of our monthly sessions for mindful movement whenever you want. Our podcast, of course, remains free and things, but it is really around making sure that we respond very quickly and in a timely manner for when someone is asking for that help.
Two questions. I'm assuming the mission statement came from your personal experience of having to call these different things and getting no response. So that response time to you is probably so personal because you don't want
Yes.
anybody else going through that.
No. I mean, it was probably 2.5 months of misery until I could get connected somewhere. And I mean, that was through my sister's connection, of how I found the therapist that I got in, who was brilliant. But and I was grateful for the wait at that time once I met with them. But those 2.5 months, those first 3 crucial months, you don't know what, like, like, you can't process anything. It's hard to really, um, like, I have a very fuzzy memory of that time. People remind me of things that happened, or like current events, or different things, like when I was out and about, just at a grocery store, like, oh, I ran into you a couple months. I was like, oh, when did you? Like, oh, I don't remember that. And did I go grocery shopping at that time?
Yeah.
All of those things. Like, you almost feel like, oh, I'm going crazy, because like it
It's like
was
a
almost like,
fog.
Yes, your grief
Mm,
fog. Yep, 100%, Brandon. That's exactly what it was. And
wow.
so, yeah, so, those first 3 crucial months, just making sure that they are surrounded. Um, that's really
Hmm.
what it comes down to.
Did you have leadership experience prior to this?
Yes. Yes. So
Because this is a pretty big venture, especially
it is.
multi-state and volunteer based is a whole different level, I'm
Yes.
sure.
Yes, that and we have a very experienced board of directors.
Mm.
So we have someone who has been a CFO and now is a CEO, but he does, our accounting and bookkeeping, and he's very good with numbers. We have a global HR professional. We have the director of all of maternal fetal medicine at Johns Hopkins on our board. We
Wow.
have an attorney, who has different multi-state licensures. So we have our chairman who has had global logistics experience. So, which is systems and things like that. So we take all of our experience really. And yes, I think from me being a commercial insurance broker for a national company, from having sales and marketing, and then just, that business sense in college and things, it's just, it all really did come together
Mm.
in a way that I get to really oversee all the different facets with this, but then have the board of directors who really are the experts in each of those fields, which is
Sure.
so huge for us because we
What's
have
the
a very
hardest?
active board.
Yeah, I would absolutely say so. And it sounds like you filled all of those gaps that you need expertise in with obviously board members who are probably absolutely crushing it. What's the
Yeah.
hardest part of leading something like this?
Ooh, keeping so this is it is it's tough is really keeping things separated. So, I am too a grieving mom, right?
Mm.
And our daughter would be 4 and it's still, you know, probably a lifetime of grieving, right?
Yeah.
But just making sure that I do keep how do I want to say this? Like I just want to make sure that I'm not always living in the grief, but I'm also living in the hope. And so if I am fully dedicated to just the support services and constantly living in the loss, and then I'm not over here doing the business side and like really going after the hope, right? Like expanding our services and expanding
Mm.
our reach and expanding and growing all of this. Like that's really what keeps me going. But I'm going to tell you, and this comes from our other leadership too, is that separation and not taking this home and not, sitting with some of the stories that you hear and things like that. So that's why too, we have a support group for the ones that are running the support services. So we can also just completely dump it,
Yeah.
but that is
Yeah.
probably the
I mean,
hardest thing I
it's,
did not see. Hmm.
yeah, I can't imagine. And when you say not taking it home, that's almost impossible
I know.
because
I know.
it is home, is
It
what
is.
started this entire thing.
Exactly. Exactly. And, it is interesting too. So a lot of our survivors, the thousands that were servicing, I don't know all of them.
Sure.
Um, but it's interesting because they do know me, just from our stories and podcasts and things like that. So that was something hard too. I had to get used to feeling like, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know your story. Can you please share with me? Just,
Mm.
because I understand you now know mine, but so that was an adjustment, which is,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I think when you start putting content out, that is a very weird realization. Is everyone is your friend, even though remember you don't know everyone.
they know your spouse's name, your kids' names, and you're like, "Oh, oh, okay. Oh, you listen. Oh, that makes sense," you know?
Yeah, you do. You forget the
Yeah.
stuff. Like you forget that when you talk for an hour with people, there's a lot of stuff that gets covered. It's it is what it is. And yeah, I'm with you. I think that's really funny because I'm starting to run into some of that of like in the sense of oh, that's right. You don't want to go to this. So, like, I hate mixtures and things like that. And they're like, I don't even know why I'm asking you. I'm like, oh, crap. That's right. I say things like that.
Yeah. I
I
know.
forgot.
If someone rephrases something that you said, it's
I
like,
know.
"Oh my gosh,"
Yeah,
yeah.
I know. Words matter.
I know words matter, they do, for sure.
Okay. Your organization emphasizes trauma informed care. So, how does this approach differ from the? No, I don't want it. That's not what I want. Sorry, that was too much like the other one. So, honoring Brooke. Your daughter Brooke's legacy lives on through your work. How do you personally keep her memory alive, and in what ways does her story continue to inspire and shape the mission of chasing the rainbows?
Ooh. Oh, yeah. So I just got chills, Brandon. But personally, what we do is she was born on February 6th.
Okay.
So we choose to celebrate her birthday.
Oh,
Yeah, we'll release, we do balloons, biodegradable ones with biodegradable string. And we will, our son, our 14-year-old son, and um, maybe someday their siblings too, but we put letters in the balloons to her, and then, put some helium in them and let them go. And
that's
that's
awesome.
our big thing. And then we have a cake for her, and we invite people to share anything or talk or anything like that. Any of my family members, and then
Sure.
also before the holidays we light a candle, and it's usually in the mornings. And we say, hey, just letting you guys know we're thinking of Brooke today. Don't feel uncomfortable. Like, we can talk about her. We can, whatever
Mm,
you guys want, but just wanted you guys to know, like, we are. And so never want anyone to feel uncomfortable saying anything. And if I cry, that's normal, just a mama missing her baby. But
yeah.
um yeah, but that's one of the ways. But honestly, through this work, through sharing her story with others who, also just like opens up them maybe to share theirs then. And that's really what it's about. And it really does cut my pain in half each time that I share her story.
Mm.
And some days I do still show up and cry, but other days I can get through it and not. Um, and that's great, that I just doing that and being there and sharing that to have somebody else maybe then open their heart.
Do you feel you've always had large amounts of empathy? Like, even just what you
Oh,
said about, like, lighting the candle and then letting the room know it's okay to ask questions and talk about it. Like, I'm not sure everybody would think that way. I know I would struggle in that headspace to be, like,
yeah.
comfortable enough with the situation to say, "It's okay, probably understand what you're going through." Do you feel you've always had that skill?
Ooh. Um, I would say that I'm really good at sitting with uncomfortability because I've been in
Okay.
sales. So outside sales, right? Like, I'm used to asking those difficult questions to hear the difficult answers, because, like, don't give me the runaround. I just want a yes or no and then we'll move on, right? And it's
Sure.
like I have such a big back, so I really don't mind taking
Okay.
anything head on. Like, if I want to go running into a burning building, that's me. Like, I'm like, let's act, let's go. Like, I'm very passionate, especially when it comes to anything mental health.
Hmm.
Just because of, dealing with anxiety in the past. And then, of course, around loss heightens it and things like that. But, just different areas. And really, yeah, that's it, Brandon.
Mm. Yeah, so one, emotional intelligence with sales usually go because you can read the room very
Yes.
quickly.
Yes.
And then
Yep.
you're probably walking into the room, pulling things from the room saying interest, 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 interest. These are
Yes.
things I can connect with. And then you're
Yes.
automatically like deciphering that entire situation. Okay.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. So it's been really helpful though, sales, because it
Yeah.
really is psychology with, support groups and things like that. But yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the reason I ask that is because it's not something I would deem myself good at, but I've had to learn. Like, so I really started reading again in November of 23 just because I was looking around going, well, there's a lot of really smart people who are reading books. Maybe I should figure this out.
Oh
And
my gosh, I
so
know. It became like a craze, right? Like, all of a sudden I started to. I feel you so
100%.
much.
I was like completely like that person that kept telling myself I'm not a reader. And then I finally said, like, get over it, like, figure it out. So I
Yep.
did. And I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And like, I thought
Oh,
I could talk to people. And then I read that book and I'm like, you are an idiot when it comes to understanding like how to. So now when I like show up to things, I research the person. I look what they're interested in, like what are their kids do, because like that little bit of homework goes so far. And then that like kicked this off, right? And then you start talking about people's passions and it's just, it just changes everything.
it really does. And to really hear about what like gets somebody so lit up, and gosh, just fueling off of that, we
Totally.
can accomplish so much more together, as people and as a society, and just really uplifting each other. And yeah.
So a couple questions about the podcast. I'm
Yes.
apologize. I didn't deep dive into it. What is your main do you guys have a niche, or are you like
Oh,
I didn't niche down because I never wanted to run out of guests until I wanted to run out of guests, but
no, right.
they say you're supposed to. So I'm wondering what is the niche and what do you guys usually cover?
Yeah, ours is mental health, grief mostly,
Nice.
but we do, it's all around living with loss is really what
Mm,
it's about. But we also have a maternal fetal medicine segment where we have a doctor who comes on and she'll answer questions around your loss because that's
ooh,
a big thing for survivors. Is like you don't get a lot of questions answered. They're like, "Oh, this just happened. It could be this, or this." Like that's the most that you get. And then like best of luck, like you need to accept that and move on. And so being able to have someone to ask medical questions about, like, is this something that might happen again? Is this because I unfortunately you as the person carrying the baby, you think to yourself, like, and if you miscarry or a stillbirth or a premature baby is born or anything like that, a woman does blame I blamed myself and I
mm,
felt guilty for different things with Brooke. Like, was it because I drank a diet Mountain Dew that caused this? Is it because I went on a long walk? Is it because we moved houses? Is it from like the environment changing in the house? It's all of those whirlwind that is like
sure.
having you spiral out. And Dr. Google is not your friend during that time because everything leads to your being your fault. So it's having someone to be able to talk that through and then start to get peace with it because you're trying that's the goal, right? Is to try to find how to live with that duality of loss and love and a life worth living versus, part of your world being stopped and no
Mm,
longer here. So like how can we continue to venture down that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. This was kind of off of a previous comment, but what does that training program look like? You talked about multiple times about training for people to be mentorship. What does that process look like?
Absolutely. So it's about a 5-hour process. So
Okay.
they go through training videos that we have. And then we also sit down for 2 hours and we go through like all of the different things with, what to say, what not to do, how to handle crisis, how to handle different situations. So then they are prepared in those group settings if someone logs on and they're really struggling.
mm,
So we need to make sure that we put, therapeutic intervention in place and get them connected as fast as possible. Our director of programs is a trauma therapist, and she has a large center in Harrisburg. So she is great and always, is involved with our groups and our mentors and things like that. And she handles, any additional training that anyone needs, which is great because um, like I said, also the re-traumatization of survivors. So they're recognizing too when they're having trauma responses because they're being triggered by somebody's story. And then that sends them spiraling out or them needing extra support and things like that. But recognizing that now, we haven't seen that because we, from our standpoint or anything from our volunteers, but we also really keep very close watch on that for them
mm,
based on those. But yeah, trauma informed is just important because these aren't just normal losses. It's usually surgeries, different whirlwind of events that happened around this. So, really addressing the medical trauma that happened in the hospitals too. Going in for a routine ultrasound, saying there's no heartbeat, and then your world's flipped, and then you're getting a medical procedure, or you need to go home and wait 2 weeks to have the medical procedure,
mm.
which is you know,
Yeah.
unfortunately, or you need to, yeah, it's a lot around it. So just making sure that we're able to handle and process, when someone's coming into group and talking about all of those things that happened to them and that being there.
So since everybody's grief is different, do you have what's the trigger for going from a survivor into a mentor? Because I'm sure it can't be a time frame because that's different for everyone.
It
What does that
really
look
is
like?
different. Yeah, it really is. Traditionally, we see around 9 months to
Okay.
12 months is when someone's wanting to go to action and
Mm,
they want to put something behind their pain. They are ready to want to give back to the lost parents. And really, we go off of their cues because, like you said, Brandon, they're so different. And we just make sure that they know and understand and recognize things, but realistically it is that time frame. And we've seen people even start as early as 3 months, but they were very like emotionally stable when they
mm.
did. But we also, like I said, we're here and make sure that we support them too.
From a business perspective, or from as a nonprofit business, I'm like a data KPI monster. And
Oh,
what would be important KPIs for like this type of setup? Like what do you guys say? Quarterly review, board meeting, this is what good looks like. What does that look like in your world?
Oh, yeah, that's actually a really good question. So it looks like any partners that we grow upon, right? So
Okay.
hospitals, funeral homes, anybody that we build in that way. That's one of them. The amount of survivors that we're getting connected to services and
Mm,
making sure that they're coming on a consistent basis. That is also another KPI that we look at. Also, like what types of services are they going into? And then, so like all the services and their attendance and times and what that is. Also, is our grants and our funding and our events. So
okay.
looking at the funnel, all that, different sectors of fundraising, that's a huge KPI as well
Mm,
for us to see how that's kind of going in line with our support services as we're expanding one. The other one should be expanding and they should be going up together, right?
sure.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
so in the grand scheme of things from a business perspective, that's actually not that different. So you have pipeline
Right.
sales funnel at the
Yes.
beginning. Your operation KPIs are
Yes.
how much are the current employees slash the people you're supporting, are they
Yes.
utilizing utilization curves and all that? Okay. Okay. That's
It's
good.
so interesting. So, like, when I went from for profit, right, and like was doing insurance brokerage for manufacturing plants and
Yeah.
construction to now looking at it like this, and it's really just like, yes, the systems it's streamlining in place, and then from there too, it is looking at each of the services. Yeah, seeing survivors versus income coming in, and it
Mm,
really is making sure that everything is running pretty evenly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm assuming and because it's everything's virtual, obviously is why you can go to all 50 states.
Oh, yes. We've kept all of our costs down with not having buildings. There is like we can really service anything that we need from a virtual model because of the pandemic now.
sure.
So having like Zoom, having virtual things that, are confidential, locked down, those kind of things that we can utilize and use, it does make it for that. However, though we are, building relationships with in-person solutions. So
Okay.
other therapy centers like the one that we have here in Harrisburg. People can go there in person if they live here in Pennsylvania, and those kind of things. So making sure that we are breaking them out per state like that, because then if we do want to go to a in-person support group model, or in addition to our others, or in-person therapy or things like that, then we can. But right, it does keep our costs down doing virtual right
Mm,
now for our mission.
So this is one of those moments where I'm not sure what to say, but this was so helpful and informative for me.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so glad, Brandon.
because it's such a world I'm so separated from. So one, thank you for submitting, and not everybody submits for the podcast because like and just does it themselves because we don't have a prior I don't know you prior to this, so thank you for doing that and
Oh,
just
no,
kind of throwing
thanks.
your name in there. I know it helps when you have your own, but what can we help with? What do you want to get out there? What do you want support from? What can the audience help with?
Oh, thank you, Brandon. I would love for anybody listening to get involved with us. We
okay.
have a couple events that are coming up. We're doing our bursting bubble run. It's a 5K. It's at John Rudy Park. But we're
Awesome.
hosting a couple throughout the nation on the same day on Bereaved Mother's Day. It's always the Sunday before. So it happens to be on May 4th this year, which is also May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So we'll have bubbles flowing because they're all different shapes and sizes, just like grief.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we'll have food trucks and just different kids events there, and it'll be a fun time. And then we're also doing a huge New York City event on Father's Day, and that one's called Breaking the Silence 5K, and that's because Father's Day isn't easy for everyone. So we're hosting that one, and then we have our huge gala in October. So
Mm,
we are always looking for anybody to support any of our events or volunteer. But additionally, we are participating in Give Local too. So anybody in York County would love to see have you guys a part of our big give day if anybody participates in that.
okay.
But we're always looking and seeking volunteers.
Okay. And chasingtherainbows.org, correct?
Perfect. Yes,
And
Brandon. Thank you.
any other outlets in the sense of is the website the best place to go, or if people need to get
It
a hold of you
is.
direct? Okay, just go right to the
Yes,
website.
they can call the line or text the phone number that's on our website. All
Okay,
of that will get directed to our support team. But yeah, the fastest and easiest way is through the contact form.
awesome. Well,
Yes.
once again, thank you. Even though this was heavy, you
Oh,
have
I
a way
know.
of delivering it like it's it's yes, it's a heavy subject, but I think it's very informative, and I think, yeah, the delivery of it is it's very uplifting at the same time. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that, but, like, it's a heavy topic, but I think it's uplifting in the sense of what you guys are doing is just incredible. All the volunteers. Oh, last question. International, is that a thought process or
Oh,
what?
we listen, I know. We do have some interest in the UK right now. They've
Oh,
participated. We do a crack an egg challenge. It's called in June for June World Infertility Awareness Month because grocery store eggs are infertile. Brandon, watch out. We might call you out. Um, but anyways, and like you throw an egg on your head. Who doesn't like to see eggs on their heads, right?
sure.
And like awareness challenges are coming back. But yes, we've had even UK, Europe, people from Canada have reached out.
It's awesome.
We are starting to have those conversations, but I think, that's probably a year or 2 out.
Okay. I'll be
Of
interested to know if there's a big difference between what US deems
Oh,
how
we've
we
had
support
so
mental health
many.
versus other.
Yes, we've had so many communications with health insurance and how it's different, healthcare,
Mm,
all of the things in other countries, and it's really interesting to see the difference in how they do handle things versus us. Yeah,
yeah, for
I
sure.
would
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's gonna be fascinating. Well, we may have to talk about that if you guys cross that bridge.
Yes, Brennan.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming on once again.
Thank you for having me.
Chasingtherainbows.org. If you need to check out or need some help or are looking to support, certainly head to the website and give a call or anything. Anything else you want to close on?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, Brandon. I appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, we'll catch you on the next one.